All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and this is, well, it's the fireside chat, but I'm doing something a little bit different because the guest I'm speaking to is on X, so we're going to be doing X Spaces. So that means I'm also opening up the floor to anybody else who wants to, chime in with their thoughts. It is, after all, International Men's Day. And you'll only know that because, well, you either are already in the loop on this stuff or I just told you. Um, and I can prove it. Just go to Google and see if there's a doodle up. And that's how you know. So, joining me here on the show is Mankind versus Modern Feminism. That's your ex name, right? Welcome to the
Yes, that's
show.
my tag, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. It's good to have you. I don't know if guys, can you hear him okay? Because you might be a little bit low. Do you have like a way to turn your mic up or something?
Is the sound okay? I could just
Oh
talk
no,
a
you're
little bit
good.
louder.
Yeah. You're good now. Yeah, I'm just looking at the levels and they were a little low, but you're fine. All right. So let me just so I just happen to notice that you have been like, you know, posting some pretty good stuff on your page and specifically like talking talking about men's issues and also critiquing the sort of predominant paradigm which is the feminist paradigm. And I thought that was interesting because there's a lot more people are like sort of adding to that conversation. So I was curious, how did you come across this stuff? Like, what's your red pill story?
I'm not sure I call myself red pill. I come at this from a position of pronatalism.
Yeah.
I'm a father. I have a couple of boys. I'm divorced. I have them half time. And I come at this from a perspective of, and I always have in intersexual relationships between men and women, that the family really matters, that it's the core probably of Western democracy as a whole, that the stability of that family matters, that kids matter, that marriage matters. And I guess the way that I came to this was as a function of some failed relationships over time, figuring out why they failed, and then an absolutely savage divorce, an
Yeah.
experience that was debilitating, um, injurious,
Mm-hmm.
incredibly painful, and I had no idea why it was happening. I had no clue what was going on. I'd heard of the silver bullet. I knew that nasty divorces happened. But I think, like every guy, I thought to myself, well, that can't happen to me because I'm not doing anything to deserve it. And it's not that I was a perfect man, I wasn't, but I wasn't hurting anybody. I wasn't hitting anybody. I wasn't screaming at anybody. Um, and so I didn't understand, particularly after my divorce, why things had to get so nasty and why things happened the way they did. So my red pill, um, my education on this began as I was trying to figure out why things were going so badly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my ex-spouse involved child protective services a number of times, um, and they were in our lives for I'd say almost 2 years at one point, constantly hunting, constantly searching. Um, Even when they had no concerns, they were hanging around. Our kids were struggling at school. That's how eventually this kind of happened. And there was emotional abuse and some physical abuse in our relationship. I didn't call it abuse at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't call it what it was, and I thought that I was doing everybody a favor because realistically, if you're being abused, you have to leave. I even knew that at the time, and so I was being. Um, my ex-spouse had depression. She had anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. She had major depressive disorder. They checked her for a bunch of other things. There was discussions about borderline personality disorder that I suspect in hindsight are true, although that was never diagnosed or assessed. She was medicated. She was Um, Volatile. She was passionate, which was what initially drew me to her. Beautiful, small, 5 foot high, very feminine. Um, but once we married and moved in together, things started to get really rough. And she started getting handsy, which I tolerated for some time. And I thought, yeah, you know what? She's not injuring me. I can take it.
I
Um,
mean, handsy as in like
oh,
kind
she'd
of like
slap me,
slap you
like,
around and stuff, but
yeah, the
as
first time she did it, I was on the phone with a colleague, a female
mm-hmm,
colleague, and I employ something in all my business conversations called the human business human model. I was taught a long time ago. So you start
mm-hmm,
by saying, "Hey, how's your day?" Right, and then you get to your business question, and then at the end of this, a few moments, you simply have a conversation about whatever commonalities people may have. I'm a guy. This doesn't come naturally to me. I like to get straight to business, and so I've adopted this model. And at the end of the conversation, I was having a just a brief moment where I said, "Oh yeah, this was back in I think 2015. Oh yeah, I'm just burning a lot of my CDs to digital because the age of the CD is done." And the female colleague that I was speaking to said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing the same." And what I didn't realize is that my wife at the time was standing by a door in our home. I was in our home working. I was self-employed, and when she heard me having this conversation with this female colleague, she became enraged, came down, demanded my phone, which I hung up on right away. I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" And as soon as I hung up the phone, she just slapped me.
mm,
Um, so there was an element of physical violence in the relationship at that point, and I thought, okay, it's a one-off. Um, but no, it happened a few more times. This was about 2 years after we married in 2013. And so things had been emotionally volatile. I wouldn't have called them abusive, but now looking back, I would say it was because I'm out of the relationship at this point. And that's pretty common for men, where they won't call it abuse, perhaps not even when they're out of the relationship.
yeah,
Um, but it certainly was emotionally abusive and became physically abusive. She slapped me 3 times, then she tossed a suitcase over a set of stairs on top of my head. She would regularly say that if I didn't leave the house, because she would say that I had to leave, that she was going to call the police and make something up. She threatened false allegations a number of times. Um, she was medicated for a brief period of time and things got a little bit better. And then she stopped taking her meds and things went off the rails in 2018. Um, and they went off the rails fairly quickly. False allegations began, alienation from the kids, kind of, aggression that was targeted towards the kids.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I didn't understand when this was happening. I researched borderline personality disorder. I mean, I did all my reading, right? And I thought, okay, well, we'll fight through this, but it wasn't going to work. And so eventually in September of 2018, I fled. I left the home on an afternoon on advice of a lawyer that I talked to saying, hey, what the hell's going on?
yeah,
Um, And after the physical abuse and the emotional abuse, at the end of it all, the fifth time she'd assaulted me, which would have been in the spring of 2018, I pushed her back. And
mm-hmm,
at that point, I said to her, we have to figure this out because it's one thing if you're hitting me, but I'm not you. I'm big, I'm strong. And I was not okay with her hitting me. I
right,
wasn't okay with her hitting me, but I thought I could deal. I thought I could take it. I never thought that I would respond, ever. But the fifth time that she did it to me, I didn't even think. I just pushed her back, and she ended up on the floor.
yeah,
Didn't pursue her, didn't chase her, nothing. Just pushed after she slapped me, and she weaponized that pretty much right away. Um, and and I chalked up a piece of it to borderline personality disorder. And I thought, okay, fine. If I leave, it'll end. If I just leave, it'll stop. And so I left in the fall of 2018, and it actually got way worse.
mm-hmm,
That's when Child Protective Services was engaged. She went to CPS and she made claims about me hurting the kids, hurting her. I found in the CPS records later at trial that they actually had no parenting concerns with me at all. None. They actually wrote down that they had no parenting concerns with me. And yet they kept the investigation open for a year hunting. Just devastating um, to have a CPS investigation open for a year based on false allegations. Allegations of physical violence, allegations of emotional violence, allegations of alienation, allegations of sexual misconduct, allegations of coercive control, allegations of financial abuse. Um, and I wasn't surprised at that, knowing what BPD looks like. Like I had done enough to know kind of what I might be facing. But what I was shocked at, and this is what started me kind of um, looking in more so into what was going on, was that everyone believed her. Everybody.
Did that shock you?
Oh, can I curse?
Yeah.
It fucking astonished me. I would show people evidence that what was being said was a lie. They would refuse to look at it. I would say to Child Protective Services, that's a lie, and I can show you the truth. And they would say, well, it doesn't matter because we're not an evidence based organization. We're a probability based organization, and we're making decisions based on probability.
Right.
And I said to them in writing it in person, I said to CPS a number of times, but it didn't happen, and I can prove it. We're not, and they would actually say to me, we're not an evidence based organization. And I said, then what are you? Like, what are you doing here if you're not an evidence based organization? And I did not understand at the time what the hell was going on. Every single worker at CPS, a total of 5 over the course of about 18 months, lied. I found out later at trial, lied about me in the file.
Yeah.
Documented that I was a problematic firearms owner that had been reported to the police. This was never true. Documented that I'd been charged with domestic violence. That was never true. Documented that, what were some of the other claims that they had documented? In essence, that I was a criminal, that I had had been investigated for domestic violence. They were concerned that I had firearms. I had none. I was a firearms owner prior, but my spouse had made me get rid of all my firearms. They made her uncomfortable at times, so I said, "Fine, I'll get rid of them. It's fine." I didn't want to, but I did. I couldn't hunt anymore, but that's fine. I wanted to save my marriage,
Yeah.
um, and so the CPS folks documented. I was paralyzed by what they were doing because not only they couldn't find anything, but every single one of them lied. Every single one of them supported my ex spouse. Every single one of them negatively impacted my ability to parent. Every single one of them was gung ho for her. It was clearly almost almost entirely opposed to my existence.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand that because when CPS first got involved, I thought, okay, finally we're going to get some neutral arbiters here. Finally, we're going to get some people who can bring some sanity to this. I mean, these people have been trained, they're university educated, they're intelligent people. They will shut this down. They didn't shut it down. They were just fuel on the fire.
Yeah.
And I began to think, how can these people, these university educated people, how is it possible for these intelligent people to lie like this, know that they're lying, and still do it? How is it possible for them to look me in the eye, lie to me? Like, how is this happening? And why is it so universal in this situation? And so I went beyond researching into what was happening with my ex-spouse and what illness might be contributing to her treatment of me, into why these people would would act this way. And it was around that time that a doctor, I think she's a professor at the University of New Mexico. Her name is Dr. Tanya Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
And she published a paper called Man Up and Take It, Gender Bias and Moral Typecasting. Do I have your permission to paste some things into the chat?
So so I wouldn't know how to access it because I'm currently displaying our conversation. But if you, let me think
Here.
here. If you send it to me as a DM, I can probably like share it there.
I can actually paste it into the chat for the Honey Badger Arcade,
Yeah.
the X space. I could just paste it there if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Let me just
Let's try that.
yeah, try that. I'm
There, I
gonna
just
make some
pasted it there.
adjustments here on the layout and let's just move this back here. Like that. I don't know, that might be a little bit messy, but all right. So just where did you put it?
I put it in the X space. So I'm on
Oh,
X right now.
yeah, yeah.
In the
I'm in
space
X
for your
too. How do I
international
look
message
at
chat.
it?
If you click on your own, so if you see where it says set a reminder for my upcoming space, if you
Yeah.
click around that image, it should take you. It should open up the chat beneath there,
Oh, I see. Okay. Let me
and
see.
there should be a link there now to sciencedirect.com to Dr. Tanya Reynolds' article. I
Trying
can
to
also DM it to you
see.
though.
Yeah, DM it to me. That might be better.
Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, thank you, and welcome to the chat. The people who had just joined, if you guys are, if you're just hanging out, that's cool. If you want to say something, I don't know, like there should be a way to like raise your hand or something in the Twitter space, right? So, okay, go ahead and DM it to me, and
Yep,
I
already done. You
will
should have it
take a
now.
look at. Okay, I'll take a look at it right now. Hold on, we'll see. Yeah, there it goes. Okay,
Now, this to
science.
me, while you're putting it up, this to me was an extraordinary article because this then led me to take a look at evolutionary biology, which
Yeah.
is the construct from which I approach most of my work now. Now, I've always been a fan of evolutionary biology. I'm a polymath as it relates to evolutionary biology. I have no formal training. My formal training in university was in psychology, um, and so evolutionary biology was not popular
Mm-hmm.
in the humanities. Never has been. Now less so than ever. But when I took a look at this, and um, thank goodness Google in that day was not as transparent about their wokeism and progressivism, a couple of other pieces began to come up. Seeger and Berry's gamma bias came up.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Alice Egan's Women Are Wonderful bias also came up. Um, and there was other research that came up that showed that this is actually universal, that this kind of strange imbalance is cross-cultural, cross socioeconomic status,
Oh yeah.
cross-racial. It's everywhere. And I had
Yeah.
heard the term gynocentrism before, but I dismissed the term gynocentrism. I didn't fully dismiss it. I'm aware that chivalry exists, and I just thought it was chivalry, right? I thought, okay, well, men are stronger, and so we put women first. But what I didn't realize before I began looking into this kind of work was that there's actually extraordinarily deep evolutionary roots in all of this, and
Yeah.
that all that's required to set it off, all that's required is competition or conflict between men and women. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
If men spend their time mainly with men and women spend their time mainly with women, and that's not to say we can't be legal equals. That's just to say that there was a time when this was the case, when men spent most of their time with men. We had kind of gender assigned roles. I'm not saying that that was good. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it was. At that point, this kind of stuff couldn't really get traction because it's fired by competition or conflict between men and women. And so it's something that existed in a one on one relationship between a man and a woman, but it didn't necessarily explode like it did with me and my ex spouse because there was no audience. But once you have an audience, there is this proclivity to elevate the woman and to denigrate the man. And it's not just a claim, it's not just saying gynocentrism. This is rooted in our evolutionary biology. There's no meaningful question that it's part of our sexually dimorphic evolutionary psychology. It's
Mm-hmm.
there. But because everybody in the system, whether it be Child Protective Services or whether it be a judge at trial, they've all come up with the humanities.
Yeah.
None of them have ever heard about this stuff, ever.
Right.
And so the people who are making the decisions about what's going to happen to you and your kids have no education at all and refuse to look at any education at all about how corrupt and prejudiced and biased the system actually is, particularly in the context of false allegations from women related to parenting. The silver bullet. It's why the silver bullet works so well, is because it's triggering an evolutionary compulsion. And that evolutionary compulsion, Dr. Tanya Reynolds has it mainly correct. And again, I'm a polymath. She's an evolutionary, right? So she's got the certifications behind her. What Dr. Tanya Reynolds looked at and what Seeger and Berry looked at and what Dr. Alice Eagley looked at was intersexual relationships between men and women. They didn't necessarily include children. But what it comes down to, and this is why the work is partially correct, is that there is a hierarchy, an evolutionary hierarchy there. And this is what really red pilled me, if you want to call it my red pill moment, is discovering that, and this just makes perfect sense. And anybody who lives can take a look at lived experience and realize this. Children come first, women come next, men come last, if at all.
Yeah.
But that's not a social construct, is the problem. That's always been called out, even in my own education, as a social construct. It's
Right.
not a social construct. It's an evolved compulsion.
Yes.
We can't escape it. Now, we can escape it if we know about it. But what this means is that in any environment where men and women compete, women are going to win
Yeah. Well,
because
yeah,
the
I see where you're
competition
coming
is
from.
to buy it.
Yeah.
Right. And
No,
so
for
that's
sure.
what
For
kind of
sure.
red pill.
We've talked about that on our show many times. Um so that was like you gave me a lot, but that's cool. I appreciate the story. But I want to okay, not that it matters that much because ultimately it doesn't. I think that you are, obviously you've done good research from what I can tell, well read, and everything else. But I'm wondering, just out of curiosity, you seem a little, I don't know, like, do the terms red pill and gynocentrism like bother you? Maybe because of the
No,
way
they
they're
don't bother
perceived
me so much as
online
I
or
think they're
something.
inaccurate.
You think they're
I don't
inaccurate?
think
Okay.
those. I think those terms are actually smaller than what the real problem is. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that gynocentrism actually covers it.
Do you
I don't think
think?
that red pill covers it.
So
I think the
let's.
problem is actually bigger than what gynocentrism might
You don't think
might.
it covers enough of it? It's not
Oh, I don't think it covers the
sufficient.
territory. I think that what's going on is that we have an elephant in the room, and what we're doing is we're moving from couch to couch describing the elephant, and
Mm-hmm.
one person is sitting near the head is describing the trunk, and then the other person is sitting at the back is describing the tail and a pile of crap on the floor.
Right.
And so I think that there's a very large elephant in the room, and I think that we're describing pieces of it. And I think that it's very
Well.
big and it's very difficult to see, and we break it up into pieces so we can eat it, so we can understand it.
Right.
Um, but there's something much bigger going on here than just um, like the challenge, for example, with gynocentrism. The challenge I have with that is that it's an assumption that we put women first, right? Now, that's kind of
That's a
technically
little
true.
bit of a. I think it might because
It's
I
a
know that
simplification.
it is a bit because I think there's a lot. And look, again, to me, I don't really care what word we use. I don't care about
Yeah,
that stuff. But
yeah,
ultimately, I don't. But I just want to make sure that we're all like coming at this from the same place.
yeah. These
So
terms
I
don't offend me at all. There's no
yeah,
offense
yeah,
in
I'm
using
not
these
offended
terms at
by
all.
using them or
No.
not using them. It doesn't matter. I know that there's been a lot of like debate about what it means, but to me, I think that the evolutionary desire or instinct to put of this hierarchy of protecting children and then women and then and then men being last or at least expecting them to be to some to expendable. I
Yeah,
think that it is an evolved thing, and I think that that
it
is like
is.
something we're not going to shake like easily. But I do think though what I don't think that that's gynocentrism is making that claim, or at least when people talk about it. I think that what
Mhm,
gynocentrism is claiming is that above and beyond the natural state of things, like what
mhm,
is like evolution that can't really be changed, there is
mhm.
an exploitation of that instinct and putting it like let's say putting it into unreasonable or like irrational places, which is like sort of so it's like there's a combination of nurture and nature going on. And I think there's
Yeah,
a
and,
nurturing
and
of
that's
the
exactly it.
instinct
Yeah,
in men
yeah,
by telling them, like you have to do this is why we have like a dating market now where women can have extremely unreasonable expectations of the men they want to date, and men don't question it, they just try to live up to it and they compete with each other to do it because they think that it does. Or if you have like I think like say there's a woman in the workforce, she's a journalist and she gets criticized or insulted in some way, and the person doing it is a man, then like you can write a whole story around how that woman was abused, and everyone will come to that, to the aid of that, or it manifests in other ways. And I think that that is based on um, what we would call romantic chivalry, even if it isn't necessarily romantic in the sense of you're trying to pursue someone to be a partner, but just like seeing women as a romantic object that we, or a romantic subject rather, that we, take extra steps to take care of or look out for. And even to the point where women supersede children too, as you can see
Yes, they
with
do.
your story of, yeah, so that this, it's where it's not like the initial instinct, like that's not going away, but like where it gets lost in, where you're basically like, the last election in the United States, I don't know if you're American, but the last election in the United States was decided, and on one side of it was, people thinking about immigration and the economy and jobs and industry and all this and foreign wars they didn't want to be involved in. On the other side, it was just abortion. So it was literally a campaign on what women want over the interests of children, namely the unborn. And that was
Yes.
like, that was how much of a deciding factor it was. I think that's the I don't want to call it imbalance, but it's so incredibly lopsided that that's the thing that I think the term gynocentrism is used to point out. It isn't the whole picture, but it's not supposed to be. I think it's just looking at that. I think that the evolved things aren't going away. And
No, they're absolutely not. And the
no.
problem is that, and that's part of why, I mean, the like when it comes to this stuff, we have language to describe male misconduct. And the reason we have language to describe male misconduct is because physical power, there's no question that physical power and social power are kind of, opposing each other. Women may have always had more social power in small groups, particularly the collective of women. I mean,
Sure.
there's no question that physical strength ran the world for a long time. That doesn't mean that the tyrannical patriarchy is real. It's not. It just meant that physical strength resulted in output of calories. That's how calories were gleaned, and everything else is a proxy for calories, economic wealth, whatever. Um, so um, physical strength dominated for a long time, and so we have language to describe physical strength and the abuse of physical strength. I don't think we even have language to describe toxic femininity, because I think that this power that women have had has mainly accelerated into hyperdrive since maybe the 60s. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think we're confused because we don't even have, I mean, words are buckets. Words are buckets that contain concepts that were taught to make retrieval easy. I don't think we even have the language to describe social manipulation as an abuse of power as opposed to physical force. Um, and as it comes to some of these things like gynocentrism or red pill, like when women talk, for example, about oppression, really what they're talking about is bearing children,
Mm-hmm.
the obligation to bear children. And I understand that having kids is tough. I understand that having kids, if you're expected to have children, I get why people might be upset about that. You talked about gynocentrism and women being elevated. Like the challenge with some of this language and our understanding of the language and the constructs involved is that women aren't entirely wrong. They were obliged for a long time to have kids because the option was they wouldn't receive any resources or support, and they'd either join a nunnery or they'd starve. The deal was men die in battle, and men die on the docks, and men die on boats, and men die in the mines, and women have kids. This was the ancient deal, right? The problem is that it's not actually women that are being elevated. It is to a small degree, and this is, in fact, this is kind of my perception of things, or why I think we lack the language. It's actually women's fecundity that's being elevated. The only reason that women are being elevated is because they have a uterus. It's not women per se that are being elevated. And that's why when
Mm.
a woman is 45, for example, she falls off the map socially. If she's 45 and doesn't have kids, where is she?
Well, I'm gonna
Like
I'm
if
gonna push
you
back on that a little bit.
of course,
Okay, so I see what you're coming from, but the thing is, how was it in historically? Like, how did it work in the past? Because that's the only place we can look, right? So, a woman in her
exactly.
40s, was well, women were definitely. I don't think historically they were. less than their uterus or their ability to produce children. I think that they
Mhm.
were different things at different points in life, just like men. And so
Yes.
when a woman is young, she is, no children, and she is fertile, and she's like basically a prospect.
Hmm.
For the starting of a family, in the same way that a young man is, right? He's youthful, he's got energy, and he's ready to risk it all, as it were, to try to
Hmm.
build something, and usually at the cost of his own body, so that he can attract a woman. And in fact, in for most of our history, people didn't date per se. They just like knew the family next door, and
That's right.
they
They
grew
just
up
got set
together,
up.
and
Yeah.
yeah, they were
Yeah.
basically set up. And it was, a marriage was more like a business, let's say a merger, right, in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
because everybody worked,
Exactly.
and it was like your family was your business. So
Hmm.
when we got into like industrialization and modernity and stuff, then the concept of dating came. And this is actually, there's a guy I had on my show. His name is This Is Shah. And he's been doing a lot of research into dowry. And like dowry is not just like people think of it and they think of like, countries like India. But dowry has always existed in
Hmm.
most societies where marriage was based on bringing families together, and you usually knew the people you were marrying from childhood, so they were like,
Hmm.
you guys were on good terms. It wasn't like the way that it's presented in movies where, oh, you are betrothed to this person that you don't know or you don't like. It wasn't like that. That's Hollywood garbage. That's a lie, right?
It is. Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying we should go back to that. I'm saying that's where we came from. But like a
Yes.
woman,
Yeah.
in once she becomes a mother, then she's valued for a completely different set of skills. Right now, she is a mother. She is raising children. She is like feeding them and everything else. And of course, the father is doing his part in that. And when she gets older, like in her 40s, she becomes a sort of like matron, right? She's got
That's exactly
grandkids.
correct.
She's
It's a
involved with the
trend.
community.
No, you and I
She's
are on the same page, here, man.
Yeah. So
It's a
like this
transition of
is
roles.
yeah, but these
The
are
difference is for men. For
they.
men, those roles don't transition. Men have the same role from probably
Yeah,
the age of 15 to
it's
the age of
basically
60.
yeah, yeah.
We
Although I think they
produce.
can be like mentors later on, like sort of like
Yeah, absolutely.
you
We can
know.
become senatorial, if you know what I mean, like
Yes,
in our later
exactly.
years.
But
But I
I
think
do
what
think that
so
no, it's okay. Just to make this point, I do think that if there is a kind of like reduction in women's value, like the way that we see them today, it's not because of something men did. I think it was, in fact, the feminist movement. It basically pushed them into the workplace. It doubled the tax base. It made women into essentially vehicles for pursuing career above all things, putting family second, and it was all about like seeing everything in terms of monetization as opposed to like other kinds of value. And
and I think you're actually painting the path to us entirely agreeing. And here's maybe where we can make the bridge.
okay,
If women today still had 3 or 4 kids in their 40s, I think they would be highly prized.
absolutely,
Women only fall off the map generally if they don't have children at their 45.
right.
They want to continue to not make the transition. Men don't have to do that. And that way, maybe we have it a hair easier as far as development over time. Because by the time we're 15, everyone realizes that we're no longer a puppy, that we're now an almost full grown dog. And generally speaking, society tosses us into a sack and tosses us into the river and says, fight your way out and swim. Now, it doesn't happen at 15, maybe it happens at 25. But society writ large, on an evolved basis, doesn't really have much time for men. Not
Uh
young men.
huh.
They have to fight their way up. That's their job, is to fight their way up. I get it. It's fine. Society has plenty of time for young. They're feeding. They can bear kids. The more potential kids they can bear, the more attention they get. That's what Instagram is. That's what OnlyFans is. It's a celebration of fecundity, an evolved compulsion to celebrate fecundity. But that celebration of fecundity means tons of affirmation and validation and dopamine for women and resources. This has always been the case. It's a male competition for fecundity, for fertility. No, it's not fertility. It's not quite the same concept. Um, and so they get a ton of affirmation, a ton of validation, and a ton of resources, and they can use their fecundity to get that, whether it be professionally, whether it be personally. We're evolved to elevate fecundity. I think what women are really objecting to is the transition from a celebration of fecundity to a celebration of maternity and saying that that's an oppressive change. And it's like, well, I get what you're saying, but we sent 18-year-old boys up to die in Germany. Like, and so the male role doesn't really change as much as the female role. It's just that we start to look at men as disposable when they're 18, not disposable when they're in their mid 30s and not
Sure.
having kids. Like male disposability is always on the table, always on an evolved level. And so I don't think that men struggle with that as much, as long as it comes along with a certain modicum of gratitude, because as soon as everyone realizes that we're no longer puppies, like 8-year-old
Mm-hmm.
boys, they get lots of attention, fine. But as soon as boys are post-pubescent, the expectation is fight, compete, win,
Yeah, for sure.
win a partner, win a wife, show us the resources, have the car, be able to support a family. And there's no turning, like there's no change for men past that point. Women are celebrated for their fecundity, but if they don't turn the corner to maternity, that celebration ends. And that's what I think many women find oppressive, is that unless they have kids, there's just not much there for them. They're not celebrated anymore. Society looks the other way. And so I think that women really do find, not all women, but I think that many women do find the obligation of maternity to maintain their social status. That's what they really think the tyrannical patriarchy is. The handmaid's tale is that you're not valuable unless you have kids. What they don't understand is that that's not men doing it. That's evolution doing it to women, the same way as evolution says men are disposable. Why would we, on an evolved level, celebrate weak men who refuse to fight and represent children? Why would we celebrate any form of masculinity that doesn't create and maintain children and grandchildren on some level? There's no reason for evolution to code that in. Why would
Mm-hmm.
we celebrate any form of femininity that doesn't result in children or grandchildren? Why would evolution
Well,
code
what?
that in?
Where does it go other than satisfying your own sort of like, I mean, frankly,
That's just it.
narcissistic
And evolution
desires? Like
didn't,
it's
that's 100% it right there.
yeah.
Evolution doesn't care if men are oppressed. It doesn't care if women are oppressed. I've read Richard Dawkins' Selfish Gene. It makes perfect sense. Evolution does not care if men are oppressed as long as we get the maximum number of adaptable grandchildren. Doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Evolution doesn't care if women are oppressed as long as we get the maximum number of adaptable grandchildren. Doesn't care. The assumption here that many modern feminists have is that life is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be affirmation and validation. And no, evolution doesn't give a good goddamn if you're happy. It doesn't care. It didn't hard code your happiness into its construct. It hard coded the maximum number of adaptable grandchildren. And here we are bucking evolution and bucking evolution and manipulating it now by artificially creating conflict between men and women. And all of a sudden, our birth rates are tanking, and all of a sudden, marriage is tanking. We've got a men and boy crisis where men are withdrawing. It's the manipulation of the evolutionary construct under the auspices of rising female power in an anti-natalist construct. Modern feminism's primary target is children, not men.
Mm-hmm.
They're going through men to get to babies. Why is abortion the number one topic for modern feminists? Their real target is not men. They have to go through us to get to babies. They don't want babies because babies to them are that turning of the corner that represents the oppression. We're not
Mm-hmm.
the actual target. We're the proxy, if you know what I mean. Because what does a relationship with a man result in? Well, kids, right? Marriage, family. It's kids. The heart of the modern feminist movement is is the belief that babies are oppression, and that's Dworkin, that's de Beauvoir. I mean, that's the
So it's
entire
not you.
thing
You're
right
saying
there.
modern feminism, but it does. That's like that's all feminism. That's what it always was. Because like
Well, to a
liberating,
degree.
like even Mary Wollstonecraft was like the
Mhm,
proto-feminist. Was
mhm.
essentially writing about um like liberation of women means liberation from their biology because that's the only way
That's
that can
true,
go.
but I
There's
do
no there
know. But
literally nowhere else it can go. Like this is why like the trans thing is big now because there's
Yeah,
nowhere else to go. Like we're just gonna try and change our bodies, like the nature of our
that's right. Gender
bodies.
deconstructionism is, an elimination of sexual dimorphism. But my mother,
Mm-hmm.
for example, I would call my mother a feminist. My mother agrees with gender. I mean, I guess in today's lingo, like if you take a look at Mary Harrington's work or Louise Perry's work as feminists, right?
Yeah.
Mary Harrington has created this or carved out this niche, calling it reactionary feminism. And Mary Harrington is in essence saying, listen, we live in a time when women can be whatever they want to be, but it's probably best if you don't compete with men. It's probably best if you do focus your early years on becoming a wife and a mother, because
Mm-hmm.
you're probably going to be happiest and your children will be in the best possible shape. And so my mom, she's like 80 now, but she's along that same line as well. My mom never went to university. Her parents didn't let her go to university. Her parents only let her go through grade 10. This was back in the 50s. But my mother says, listen, I'm working my ass off. I'm working hard. I'm your father's equal, but I refuse to compete with him. He and I are not going to compete. We're equals. But my
Yep.
mother has no interest in competing with my father, and my father has no interest in competing with my mother. None. Zero. And that's the only reason that they're approaching their 60th wedding anniversary, is because they refuse to compete. And my mother does not believe that women should compete with men, even if they're in the same career paths. Like, it doesn't mean that women can't be lawyers. It just means that we need to reduce male female competition whenever we can, because the male female competition engages gender bias and moral typecasting. And that means that we're off to the races with false allegations and all kinds of toxic conduct to manipulate the evolved compulsion, right? And so, family law, that's a competition between men and women. Family
Yeah.
law is rife. It is completely rife with gender bias and moral typecasting. Now,
Mm.
I've struggled with gender bias and moral typecasting because um, it uses the term morality, like it uses the term morals as if this isn't purely evolved conduct. Like, I'm not sure people understand. Cats do this. Dogs do this. Elephants do this. Um, every single primate does this. Every single one. And the really strange things, and again, this is my own work now, but it was based on Dr. Reynolds' work. It's not just that cats do it with cats and dogs do it with dogs as a marked preference for infants than females with no preference for males. If you have a man and a woman fighting, even if the woman is the aggressor and there's a male dog present, he's more prone to bite the male, even if the male is the victim. It's interspecies.
Yeah.
Cats will comfort children and women, but they will leave men alone. Cats respond to female vocalization favorably by approaching and rubbing, but not male vocalization. This is not some moral thing. Cats don't have morals. Dogs don't have morals. Gorillas don't have morals. This is an ancient evolved system that at this point, many, but not all, but many women are manipulating for personal gain. And that's what modern feminism is. Because if the course of all of this is children first, then women, then men, you follow me so far? That's a simple
Yeah.
construct. If modern feminism is fundamentally antinatalist and you reduce the number of children or eliminate the number of children, who is the primary beneficiary of the evolved bias? If you take out the kids, who's the maximum beneficiary of the system?
Well, yeah, it's the women.
It's the women.
Yeah.
They receive the affirmation, the validation, the attention, the resources, and they have no responsibility at all to pass it on. And men aren't even part of the construct. And it's interspecies. Can I send you another DM of something?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, here. Um, it's a grok analysis. Just did it the other day. And so I've
Mm-hmm.
kind of renamed this. And again, this is my work. And I believe it's a very, very good work. But it's all based on the initial my initial understanding of Dr. Tanya Reynolds' work. So I'm sending it to you now.
Okay, I got it right here.
You should have a grok analysis now.
Yep.
Okay.
Um.
Now this,
Okay.
sorry, go
You want
ahead.
me to? Oh yeah, this is a lot. Okay, it's long.
No, we don't need to go through it in detail.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be useful to have up in the chat. In fact, I'll post it in the X chat here so that people can see it if they want to see it. Um, where is it here? There it is. So Dr. Reynolds looked at this from a human level, just a human level. Okay.
mm-hmm.
And that's fine. What she didn't look at, what no one has really integrated, is that it's an interspecies pattern of conduct. Okay. So, what I took a look at in this analysis was how deep does this go? And this is where Grok confirmed, based on assembling a bunch of different research, cats will comfort children before women, cats will comfort women before men. Cats almost never comfort men. They'll come to men for food, they'll come to men for attention when they want attention, but they almost never come to comfort men when men vocalize. Same for dogs, same for
Mm-hmm.
primates, same for elephants. Okay. So this is not gender bias in moral typecasting, with all respect to Dr. Reynolds. This is something much, much different. And what I've called this, I asked Grok for some names, and we kind of went through things. It's this. I've actually called it the synergistic interspecies, and this might be a little precocious. I don't know. The synergistic interspecies um, uh, infant female triage modality,
Mm-hmm.
because this isn't just about men and women and kids. This is so much deeper. If a man and a woman are having a fight and a stray dog was to intervene, he would bite the man.
Yeah.
This isn't just about people, right? This goes into every. So what this means, the synergistic interspecies SIFT is the acronym. Every single interaction we have, we are sifting people into buckets of infant through femininity through masculinity. Who's at the bottom end of that as far as who has the most responsibility and the least benefits? It's not just men. It's the most masculine men.
Yeah.
It's a distribution curve of proclivity favoring infantilization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about modern feminism and infantilization, the claims, the conflict. What they're doing is they're pushing themselves down towards infantilization. The Handmaid's Tale, the tyrannical patriarchy, men are all oppressors. They're vocalizing, whether it be in writing or on YouTube, they're vocalizing and infantilizing themselves to get the attention. That's it. Dogs do it, cats do it, everything does it. That modern
Children do
feminism
it.
is simply, it's an evolved construct. Modern feminism is an evolved construct. It's that's why they can believe in what they're doing and lie at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because it feels correct even if they're lying. That's what happened to me with Child Protective Services. That's what happened to me at trial. Even though I ended up with 50-50 custody, it's what happened to me at trial. Everybody wants to support the female vocalization. Dogs want to support it. Cats want to support it. Gibbons, gorillas, elephants want to support it. So do lawyers. So do judges. So does everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone does. All that women have to do, and not all women, many women hate this construct. Mary Harrington hates it. Louise Perry hates it. Bethna Arndt hates it. Many excellent women of excellent character hate this evolved proclivity. But there's no question that modern feminists are paying out an evolved proclivity towards grievance narratives, female vocalization, to gain power and cutting off the tail end of the infant. They're cutting off the obligation to have children so that they are the bottleneck. They are the receiving end of all affirmation, all validation, all of that. That's my red pill moment.
Yeah.
That was my red
And
pill
that
moment, is understanding that this isn't even just about people. This goes way, way deeper than people. And it's not about morals. Modern feminism is not a social construct. They are playing out an evolved compulsion to deceive and self infantilize and characterize men as oppressors. And they believe it, and yet it's a lie.
Yeah.
But they
But
believe it. They actually
of
believe
course,
it.
no, of course they do. Well, I mean, yeah, I think there are people who also seek benefit from this setup, but there is something. If it's evolved, then why is it killing us? Because it's going to, at like with the birth rates plummeting.
Oh, no, no. There's
Um.
an answer to that question.
Okay.
ABC News just uncovered that answer. Let me see if I can get this for you. I might have to paste in here. ABC News just ran a poll about what men and women want. Okay.
Oh, I know. We
Um,
covered it on the show. Are you talking about
right. Okay. So you
yeah?
saw the poll, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way that you figure out what someone wants is not when they're in a position of duress, because stated preferences versus revealed preferences mean that you have to be in a position of power and strength to have your revealed preferences show. If
Right.
someone's got a gun to your head, are you going to tell the truth or are you going to lie and tell them whatever lie they want you to tell? You're going to say whatever they want to say.
Yeah.
So you can only tell the truth and have your stated preferences match your revealed preferences when you have power. That's it. That's the only point at which you can afford to be honest because there's no gun to your head. Women have more power now than they've ever. Now they're less happy than they've ever been, but they have more power now, and so they can start to allow their stated preferences to align with their revealed preferences, and that's what the ABC poll uncovered. I don't believe, although there's a distribution curve of proclivity, I don't believe that women ever wanted marriage or children.
You don't
I
believe that
believe that they
women
were
ever wanted
compelled
what?
marriage or children, not
Oh.
not not for its own purposes. I believe that women were created by evolution, as men were created by evolution, and that women were created by evolution to require men and the caloric input that men could provide. That's why concealed ovulation evolved in women. You're familiar with that?
No.
Concealed ovulation, we're one of the only species on the planet that has sexual relations outside ovulation,
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. I think
right?
Karen has talked about
So
this
we
before,
can
but
have
go ahead.
sex and even enjoy sex
Mm-hmm.
outside ovulation. The reason that evolved is so that women could secure resources from men without having a child for their own survival, not just for the survival of a child. Okay. This is the basis for prostitution, concealed ovulation, the exchange of resources for sexual access minus a child, without a child.
Mm-hmm.
Now that was okay in a circumstance where women had to approach men for resources because if they approached men for resources often enough, ovulation kicked in. And that's not to say that women were oppressed. Many women enjoyed those experiences. Sex isn't always some tyrannical patriarchal act of oppression. Women have enjoyed sex for ages. Okay, this is not new. But in that context of women being compelled to approach men for resources, eventually they got pregnant. But no one was choosing pregnancy 150,000 years ago. We've only had the ability to think for 150,000 years. No one knew they were going to have a kid when they had sex. We were incapable of thought. No one was choosing children. What women were choosing was to exchange sex for resources. And occasionally they were more compelled to do it because they were ovulating and enjoyed it more because they were ovulating. No one was choosing children. No one was choosing the relationship. The relationship was an evolutionary construct. It's not a social construct. Marriage is not a social construct. Vasopressin and prolactin on the part of men and oxytocin on the part of women. This is what family is. These chemicals define it. Family is an evolutionary construct. It's harder in people than it is in other species, but family is an evolved construct. Men have vasopressin and prolactin as a function of sex. That makes them mate guard women. That's male love right there. Women
Mm-hmm.
have oxytocin as a result of orgasm and breastfeeding. That's family. Like these chemicals define it. The family is an evolved construct, perhaps best personified in Western democracy, which is probably why Western democracy has done as well as it's done, because the nuclear family has never been stronger than in the context of Western democracy. It's part of the nuclear family that built it. No one country, if you know what I'm saying. It's that construct that did. But in that construct, women weren't consciously choosing children. They were choosing the marriage, they were choosing the relationship just as through concealed ovulation because it was their access to social status, which is resources. Social status is a proxy for resources. If you're strong within your community, your community will support you, right, with resources and calories. They were choosing social status and they were choosing their own lifestyle and their own survival. But now that women have power and are no longer compelled to seek men for protection or for resources, which men didn't do to them, evolution designed them that way. Evolution designed us our way. Now that women are coming from a position of power, they no longer have to say that they value marriage or children. They can actually speak a stated preference that mirrors the revealed preference. They never wanted marriage and children for marriage and children's sake. They wanted it for survival. If a woman didn't have children, she was going to be in a nunnery. Do women really want to eat porridge every day? No.
Well, I mean, lots of women do join nunneries, but I it just sounds like do women not get any joy out of motherhood? Do they
Well,
not
they
have an
absolutely do,
instinct
but only
like
once. But only once they have the kids.
right?
See,
Okay.
because breastfeeding, so men, good sex, result in oxytocin for women. It's a bonding chemical, right? It
Mm-hmm.
bonds people together. But once a woman has children, the number one source of oxytocin is no longer sex; it's breastfeeding. That
Right.
oxytocin in a new mother maintains her mental health and holds her in the family unit. As long as she's breastfeeding, she's unlikely to end the family because the oxytocin from the breastfeeding gives her a sense of contentment and peace. She's content.
What
And
about
so,
what about this though? So like as
yeah,
an aside, okay? So I believe that another thing that impacts women's behavior when it comes to whether or not they're gonna get married, stay married, and have children, or if they're going to get divorced, or whatever it is they choose, depends on the social circle they're in. And I think that it's a social contagion. I have a
yes,
data point where a woman who is in proximity to other women who have gotten divorced they are more likely to get divorced. So if they see their friends are getting divorces, it increases their chance of getting divorced by like a significant number. I'm
yeah,
sorry, I
and
don't
they
have it
actually
in
have a
front of me,
name
but I
for
can
this now.
find it. And it's a
No,
social
they actually have a
contagion.
name for this. You're hitting
Yeah,
the nail right on the head. Okay,
but the
so
opposite of
this
this
is
is true
actually
as well.
yes.
What I was
Now,
going to say, the opposite is true because if a woman is around a woman, like let's say they're in a group of friends, and one of them gets married, and the other women like are more likely to get married, and if one of them has kids, then the others are more likely to have kids, and if a bunch of women are all within a sort of proximity of each other and they're all having children, then they're all going to get a lot of, it's not just the chemicals of breastfeeding, but it's the social aspect of it becomes essentially where they get all of their joy and their affirmation from. Whereas if
yeah,
they're not doing that, they're getting it from, I don't know, social media engagement, attention from the attention economy, from men, from other women. They're engaging in social media like dogpiling or whatever it is, but they're not.
yes.
It's like the energy is they're still asking for this stuff, but they're just getting it from somewhere else. You know what I mean?
And you're 100% right. And the name in evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology for that is strategic prosocial behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a good reason for it. It's that men survived as individuals often, but women could never survive as individuals. One man versus one woman, like again, we're talking 100,000 years ago when our compulsions were drafted by evolution or longer. A woman alone was dead or raped. That
Yeah.
simple. Whether it be a predator or a human predator, right? Or starvation, she was dead. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the case for a man alone. His
Mm-hmm.
chances of dying were
I mean, he
higher,
could end up,
but,
yeah, dead
but he
also.
could end up surviving and moving through.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything that creates a 50% plus one chance of improving survival eventually gets hard coded by evolution. And so evolution hard coded women to become more of a collective. That's what strategic pro social behavior is. And the interesting thing is, high testosterone eliminates strategic pro social conduct. It's not something that men experience, which is why women form collectives fairly quickly and men just don't. That's part of the gender bias and moral typecasting. It's part of why women will often act as a collective and men will often act as individuals, because women's survival depended on them not straying too far from other women when the
Mm-hmm.
men were gone hunting, when the men were away for a period of time. And so women needed to form a social collective. Here's the question: how do you know that you're protected? In any herd animal, in any collective, do you want to be at the edge of the herd where a predator could get to you, or do you want
No,
to
you
be
want
in
to be
the
in the
center
middle.
of the herd?
Yeah.
Right. But who's in the center of the herd? And the answer is high status females.
Mm-hmm.
The high status females are the center of the herd, right? You want to
Yeah.
be near the high status females. How do you accomplish that goal? You do what they do and you believe what they believe. You act like they act. You mirror the higher influence women in your social group. And so if you're married to the highest status woman in her social group, she's not going to be swayed much by one of her friends getting divorced because she's the highest status female of the group. But if you're
Right.
married to one of the lower status female in her social group and her highest influence friend gets divorced, you're fucked. And there's nothing you can do about it because her physical survival 200,000 years ago didn't depend on her doing what you told her to. You were gone
Mm-hmm.
most of the time. Her physical survival depended on her proximity, physical, social proximity to the highest status female in her peer group. Any
Yeah.
woman who got cast to the edge of the tribe by the highest, any woman who got excommunicated from her peer group died. That's strategic pro-social behavior, and that's why women are more susceptible to anorexia. That's why they're more susceptible to bulimia. That's why they're more susceptible to social contagion of gender contagion. That's why young women are more susceptible to getting tics after they watch a higher status female on TikTok with a large following have facial tics,
Yeah.
because women see their peer group as physical survival, absent external threat. If there is an identifiable external threat, they see you as a man as their physical survival. But absent a visible external threat that a man is supposed to defend them from, in essence, a predator of some kind, they see other women, their peer group, as their physical safety. They're safer with their peer group. And so if their peer group has a couple of high status women who have gotten divorced, there's nothing you can do as a man.
Mm-hmm.
You are not, absent a bear at the door, absent a saber-toothed tiger at the mouth of the cave, and you standing between her and it with a spear. She is going to chase your peer group.
All right, I got a super chow
Yeah,
I got to read out really quick from Zaranx. He sent it earlier and I didn't get a chance to read it. He sends $10 and says, "Men protect the family. The best way to have all members of a family left vulnerable is to minimize the efficacy of the protector. Otherwise, all members would work in concert of guarding said family. Guaranteed, the most evil individual couldn't come up with this. It works too well." All right, thank you for that, Zaranx. Sorry, that was like from a while back, so the context might be lost. You mentioned that women like they have power now, and I think it's the illusion of power. Like they're very comfortable. Like men have made modern women very safe and comfortable with all of our modern conveniences, and I think it's given them like this threat or danger of being like unsafe where they need men. I think that's
yeah,
kind
that's
of like
exactly. Yeah.
it's gone. Like that the
No,
the
you can call it
threat
an
is
illusion if you
there. No,
want.
the threat is
Yeah.
real and it's there. And what we have in terms of like what keeps these women safe is extremely fragile and it's constantly being chipped away at. And in fact, in a lot of ways, women are chipping away at it themselves because of how safe we have made them. Right. So, you
Mhm.
know, we so like yeah so I think that this is it's strange then that women are actually undermining their own safety net probably because they're not aware of how dangerous the world actually can be, and it can happen very fast. And also, why then is there a multi-billion-dollar industry that's trying to convince women to, not have kids and divorce their husbands and tank the birth rate and kill their own babies?
Which
Like
multi,
if it's
which specific,
well,
like,
the
are
the
you talking
the
about modern feminism as the
yeah,
multi-billion
modern,
dollar
well,
industry?
like the whole cathedral, like the whole, like, education, media, politics, the whole apparatus is essentially weaponizing women's fear, insecurity, and narcissism to destroy themselves and our society by choosing, to divorce themselves from men, to not trust men, to constantly fear men, to see them as the enemy, to see them as competition, which is, like, according to what you said, is like the reason, is like the root of all of this. and
Mhm.
and yet there, that much money and energy has to be thrown in that direction. um
I
so
have an answer for it. It's an imperfect answer, but I have an answer for that, which is the concept of the doom loop. Are you familiar with the work of John B. Calhoun in behavioral sinks
no.
back in the 60s and 70s? Okay. So, John Calhoun, he was an ethologist and animal psychologist. They call it ethology in animals, which is a huge mistake. To separate animal psychology and human psychology is a massive error. It's where the concept of social constructs comes from, is the separation of human and animal psychology. Because we
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't look at a rat and say it was choosing. We would look at a rat and say it's playing out its biology. We don't look at people that way. We should. There's no separation between human and animal behavior in that way. So he had rats and mice, and he would build these colonies, and he would put rats and mice in these huge colonies, just two, three, four breeding pairs, right?
Yeah.
Just a couple, and he would watch what happened as population climbed. And the one colony, um, actually, he did this repeatedly. The colony would grow to a certain point that was nowhere near the capacity of the space he'd given them. He would give them a space that accommodated like 2,000 rats, easy. And he would give them unlimited food and he would give them unlimited water. But at some point, the birth rates began to tank. And at that point, the rat civilization was already dead. They just didn't know it. What happened at that point is the population density climbed, the number of social roles wasn't there, um, and the rats destroyed themselves.
You're talking about the Mouse
They
Utopia
began,
experiment.
yeah, that's exactly it. The Most Utopia
Yeah,
experiment.
yeah, yeah.
That was a
Okay, I
doom
just
loop.
don't,
And
I
so what
know it
happened?
by that name, not the guy
Yeah, okay.
Calhoun.
So rat utopia experiment. So he called it a behavioral sink, and he actually said that the rat civilization or the mouse civilization suffered two deaths: the spiritual death, which preceded the physical death,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the spirit of a doom loop. It's like a rocket ship that creates its own fuel. Once a certain set of conditions are triggered, a doom loop means that the rocket no longer requires an import of fuel. It
Right.
creates its own. Okay, which
It
isn't the
becomes
concept that's
self-sustaining. Right.
it becomes a perpetual motion machine is what it does.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's only possible in things like human behavior, right? Like it's only possible where irrationality can exist. Can't happen in physics, can't happen in chemistry. There you've got catalysts and stuff that run out, and the reaction ends. It can only happen in the presence of a certain amount of evolutionary compulsion or psychotic insight or psychotic mass formation. Um, Psychotic mass formation is a desmit. It mirrors Jung's analysis of society-wide pathology, mental pathology. There were villages in Europe where everybody was compelled to dance and they couldn't stop dancing. Psychotic mass formation, right? The Salem witch hunt, psychotic mass formation, where a group of people simply believe a certain thing and nothing you do could dislodge them. Well, in this concept of what Dr. Tanya Reynolds called gender bias moral typecasting, that I call synergistic, um, intersexual, um, infant female triage. If women create a context of threat, if women can create the context that men are the external threat, and if society elevates women above conflict, society suppresses men. That's what society will do. If women say men writ large are the threat to our existence, then men will actually subjugate other men, and women will as well. Now, the APA tested this. This is a fascinating link. I can send you this quickly. where they looked at implicit bias. They looked at some of this stuff because they had made this statement that traditional masculinity was problematic. I'm not sure if you recall all that.
Oh yeah,
And they got some
absolutely.
heat.
Well, all
Yeah, they got
masculinity is problematic, really.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
they got
there
heat
is no non-toxic version of masculinity at this point.
according to the APA. But the APA is led by not just modern feminists, but modern intersectional feminists that question the concept of gender. Right. So
Yeah.
these are gender deconstructionists running the APA at this point, which explains a lot of kind of where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So they ran this study that they did nothing with, but it is absolutely stunning. It is it's a study that confirms that women's likely evolved under the circumstances, implicit bias against men is actually greater than racism.
Oh yeah, for
They
sure.
ran it in
Mm-hmm.
2022. I'm gonna send it to you now.
I mean, the conversation around racism is actually just a distraction. It's misandry.
Yeah. So I've
But
sent you the study. It's from PubMed. It
yeah.
was in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. And this study actually confirms much of what you and I are talking about here. Men want women to win by a little because that's how we get laid. Honestly, that's how we have sex. If women lose and their serotonin is low and their dopamine is low and their social success is low, they don't want us around. But if we make women feel good, we get to have sex, and we're compelled to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So men actually have a slight compulsion across all races, all socioeconomic statuses, to slightly elevate women's interests above their own by having what's called a negative implicit bias. We don't actually think badly of women at all. Individual men can act badly, but as a collective, men actually want women to win by a little, just a little, above our own interests, which fits chivalry theory. It fits everything else we're talking about, gender bias and moral typecasting.
Did you send me
But
the study, the last one you just brought
yes,
up?
yeah.
Okay. Where did you send,
If you
like, a
look in your
DM?
chat, you should have it by now.
Um, I gotta refresh this maybe because I don't see it. Let's see. Is it testosterone eliminates strategic pro-social behavior through? Is it that one or no?
Nope,
No,
that's one from before.
that's weird. I don't see it. Send it as a DM too. I'm gonna pass it to Allison. Um. So
So they
okay.
ran this study.
Yep.
Um, it's the largest social bias they could measure, and again,
Mm-hmm.
um, it ran through all socioeconomic classes. It ran through all races. Okay, which means when something like that happens, there is a very high probability that it is evolved. Oh, sorry, I sent you the wrong one. Sorry, I must have copied and pasted. I can see that now. Let me get the right one.
Okay.
I've got it here. No, I sent you the wrong
Um.
one. It's my own fault. I'm sending the correct one to you right now from the Journal
Okay.
of
No, it's fine. Well, look,
yeah,
I can't go for much longer because it's like really late here. But
yeah.
I wanted to uh ask. Okay, so this sounds very like predestined. So
It is.
so then why are you pronatalist if it's all pointless?
Someone's going to survive.
Okay, so
I
you're
don't
just.
want my children. I do not want my sons infected by this. We
Mm-hmm.
cannot. And again, this is going to sound doomsaying at this point, but like, look at the work of Dr. David Betts, for example. Like the professor of war for insurrection at King's College is saying we're done.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are experts in insurgency and civil war, many of them at this point are saying this goose is functionally already cooked. We're finished. People aren't listening, much like people will build on the Andreas fault line in California and then be surprised when an earthquake knocks down their house. Human beings are narcissistic, we're egocentric. We're not going to listen, right? That's the whole myth of Cassandra. People can tell the truth and no one listens. No one listens. It's the way things are. No one's listening.
Yeah.
But my children are not going to have the life that I had if I can help them. And by talking about the evolved biases, when civilization falls, it's not that everyone dies. It's not some zombie apocalypse. It's 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 years of managed decline where life gets tougher and tougher. But if I can tell my sons, love women, but never compete with them, love them, never compete with them, ever. Find a career where you do not have to compete with them, even if it means that you have to be an entrepreneur. Never compete with women. You're going to lose because that's what evolution has set up. It's not that civilization falling kills us all.
No, I hear you.
I have children, right? And so I have to act in a way that's consistent with my children's best interests. I can't just say, we're done, give up. I work 16-hour days. I work hard, right? I have to build what future I can, even if I know that civilization, the Western democracy is done. It's finished. It can't survive this doom loop. We're in a doom loop. We're in a behavioral sink. We're finished. But my sons can still have a great life because it's not that Rome is burning to the ground. It's not like everything's being set on fire. It's that we have to make do with what we have if we have kids. I'm a pronatalist. I have to do what's in my children's best interests, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the point in lying down on the ground and saying the sky is falling, I give up? I feel like doing that. Trust me, I feel like doing that with the experiences I've had. But you can't. I have sons. They have to have a better life. And so I could say to my sons, love women, recognize this system, don't hate on women. Men misbehave, women misbehave. Men as a collective have not done great sometimes, and women as a collective aren't doing great right now. Helen Andrews' recent thing on the feminization of society writ large, in essence, she's saying it's over. She's been clear that the law will not survive feminism. That the intersectional application of justice means that women will give justice to whoever they want instead of giving justice to all. Yeah, that's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I've encouraged my sons, for example, to not. My sons are teenagers, and I've said they love to hunt, they love to fish, they love to be in the country. I've said live in the country, live in a place where you're closer to existential harm. Live in a place where community is community because you're not surrounded by pavement. Live in a place where you can walk in the forest. Live in a place where there's water. Don't live in the cities are first. If you watch David Betts' work, if you listen to David Betts or any of the folks in the know about insurgency and what they believe is coming, the cities are going to go first because the cities are the hotbed of modern feminism. And
Yeah.
so, why am I not lying on the ground giving up? I don't know. Maybe if I didn't have kids, I'd be a nihilist. Maybe I'd be a black pill. I have children.
Yeah.
I'm compelled to fight for my children. And not just my kids. I feel strongly about fighting for kids writ large. Modern feminism is killing them. They are the target. Babies are the target. Men are just the path to eliminate the babies. If they eliminate men, they eliminate babies. They know
Mm-hmm.
it. They aren't thinking it. They think that they're targeting male oppression. They're not. What they're really targeting is conception and pregnancy and the twist in the role towards being a mother instead of being affirmed and validated for fecundity. Their target is babies, not us. They just have to go through us to get to the babies because they never
Right.
wanted them in the first place. They only wanted them to secure their own survival and social status.
All
Now,
right.
some
So
women want kids. I'm not saying that no woman wants kids.
no, I
Is there an
know.
evolutionary compulsion to want them? Yes. But outside the existential, the reason that birth rates are tanking is women don't existentially need men anymore and aren't compelled to change sex for resources. That's the main reason. Absent an existential need for men, an evolved existential need for men,
Yeah,
women's
but
natural and
if things get bad enough, that existential need for men could come back, like a
what do you think
war
men are going to do when
or
that happens? We have
I don't
social media
know.
now. Like
It's
we
hard to
we we
say. I
know.
mean,
Like we
mm,
see if we see the malice now, if we see the malice, and I see it now, and once you see it, once you read these papers, you cannot unsee it if you understand what they say.
mm-hmm.
If I had someone from my past, my ex-wife, come to me now and say, "Hey, I've changed my mind," I'd say, "I don't care. I'm not doing anything for you because I'm not a boy. I'm a man. You cannot come back to me as a woman for convenience now that it's convenient for you.
Yeah.
because you're just going to flip the other way again.
All right, just a moment. Mr. Xavier in the chat wants to speak, so I gave
Yeah.
you permission. You should be able to speak. Try to unmute and go ahead, Mr. X.
Yeah, I'm used to spaces. I was going to say, if you want to make things easier, if you ever go to your chat rather than just leave it in the chat bubble, you can share it to the space. So if you go to any tweet and you hit the up arrow, you'll see a new category that says share to space. It'll say share to International Men's Day. And you could have something in the quote unquote nest, because it used to be Twitter, the bird, the nest. It's now called the Jumbotron. So just a little added
What?
tip if you wanted to do that.
Let me see if I. Okay, I'm just checking. So
I'll
he
go to
sent
any
me
tweet.
this. So I go share to. Oh yeah, share to space. So did I just did it? I think.
Yeah, and now you'll see some
Oh,
of my
there it
posts there
goes.
as well.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Thank you.
No problem. Just for the
Um,
listeners and just to follow along what you're talking about. It's a great conversation.
all right. No, thank you. Thank you.
Ultimately, if there is a
So
cure, it's going to take a few generations for men to kind of men who see it anyway, for men to forgive and move on. It's going to take 2-3 generations for men to forget what's going on right now.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, the
If I
pain
could just add
is.
one sentence,
Yeah, go
I know
ahead.
you're wrapping up, so I'll make it really quick. I know you said you were wrapping it up, but I did like the conversation. I don't know if this was a one-on-one interview, so I didn't want to
No, no,
request early.
I was. It was a space. I let anybody who wants to say something can go ahead and say a few words if they want. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. I do like the analysis. It is a little bit. I do disagree on the solution, though. It is a bit black pilling. Um, and I understand your perception of why that. But if you take a look at the climate, it's not so doom and gloom as everybody's talking about. I mean, it's very chaotic as these things are. As we, once you reach the precipice of sexual dynamics and the chaos of it, you kind of have to go the other way. So you get the MRAs, you get the Chads, you get the Andrew Tates, and it's all over the place. But there it's an effort because it is so chaotic. So I I see that as a win. Actually, there's a silver lining of people trying to figure it out because the men and women dynamic is something that it's complementary, right? We need each other. It's reciprocal. But as you know, not in the way it is right now, married for all the reasons you stated. So
Well,
I don't know whether you do the
to mankind's
how
point, like in what I've been saying all this time, Mr. X, it's not just complimentary. The man and woman thing is everything. Like we're literally
Yeah.
distracted by all these other things happening, and if we don't deal with the man woman thing, then none of the other stuff matters. And the fact that you said,
Well,
when you pointed out mankind that like, the it's greater than racism. I mean, that didn't even I didn't blink an eye because I knew that was actually
yeah.
like the root of it. Like everything else comes from that. It's
And it
like,
makes perfect logical sense because when you think about the oldest division in the human race, there's
mm-hmm.
only one human race.
Yes.
The oldest division in the human race is sexual dimorphism, male and female.
Yeah,
Race
absolutely.
came after. Culture came
Way
after.
way later. Like,
Right, way later. And a lot of
yeah.
the problems we're having right now, these divisions, critical race theory, critical ethnic theory, critical sexual theory, these all flow back in part to the grievance narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And the oldest grievance narrative that exists is the synergistic interspecies infant female triage.
Yeah.
Children, then women, then men. If we can solve that, we can solve everything else. But if
Absolutely.
we can't
100%.
solve that, it's the fountain, it's the source of gender ideology, the
Mm-hmm.
the 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 infantilization of gender ideology, the students with kefias on the protesting in the streets saying you're say when somebody says you're genociding us when you're not,
Yeah.
right? We're not genociding trans people, we disagree. When they say you're genociding us, they're engaging that bias by infantilizing themselves. Every cat, every dog, every elephant, every primate would respond to their distress, their infantilized distress. That is woke. That is
Mm-hmm.
progressivism.
Yeah, for
Self
sure.
infantilization to engage this infantilized bias where we see them as children and we rush to their defense. It's evolved, but it's evolved into a doom loop that includes race, religion, culture, ethnicity, nationalism. The original source of it is sexual division. The
Yeah.
original, the OG
Absolutely.
division is
Absolutely.
sexual division. And the only way to resolve it is to see these biases, to see the evolved nature of the division and say, stop.
Yeah. All right.
We have to
So,
see the wall if we're not going to hit it. If we're not going to hit the wall
mm-hmm.
that we're running into, we have to at least see the wall.
No, yeah, I don't disagree. So Brian, there's another Brian in here. I think it's Botch TV. He actually requested to speak, so I'm gonna let you talk. I already approved you, so go ahead.
I just got a quick question in regards to your guys' conversation. So you guys mentioned everything boils down to men and women. Everything
Everything.
and pretty much in society boils down to men and women. And you're seeing this trend. Obviously, I've watched maintaining frame. That's like the one thing I never miss. When you, Brian, and Allison, when you guys do it, so that's something I never miss. And
Cool.
one of the things that I wanted to ask, I guess, is because you're noticing this trend of just young men like myself, 26-year-old young men, Gen Zers, just giving up on like dating. I'm not necessarily black pilled, but just checking out and just not engaging with women in a sexual for a sexual purpose or for any of that. Obviously the declining birth rates, declining marriage rates. And you guys propose some solutions, obviously, with seeing the biases within our court system, within our world, within our society. I guess my question is like, where do you start? Because that's kind of, that's a big hurdle, and obviously this is going to take a long time. But obviously, you don't want people like myself that are young, that are not having kids, when they're in the prime of their lives, not having families. You have to have the desire of men to come back. And like you said, Brian, it's going to get to a point where it's so bad that, for men at least, or for men checking out, it's going to get so bad to where like women are going to be like, please come back. And we've already seen that with articles that you've obviously covered on the
It's
show.
been going.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, look. All I would say is,
and men aren't coming back, by the way.
what was that?
And men aren't coming back.
The men aren't coming back.
Well,
No, they're not.
there's no indication when they say, men, can't you come back? Like
No,
walked
yeah, for
away.
sure.
No, men aren't coming back.
Well, what I think is happening is, men are just working on themselves. So they're just like, going and working on themselves, and hopefully, and I think this is absolutely crucial because I've been advocating this from probably since I started doing this, is that they're forming some kind of fellowship with other men in some way,
Right.
online, in person, because that's where you can cultivate yourself without like women's they can be a distraction for men, even if they don't mean to be. It doesn't matter. That like I think that men need their own spaces, and unfortunately a lot of times when men try to make their own spaces, women tend to intervene because they don't, it's been going on forever.
Yeah,
but I
they
think
get shut down. Yeah.
Yeah, but look, I'm just to put it straight. I think most men are working on themselves, and they should. They shouldn't be distracted by women for now. And what will happen is the ones that essentially outside of women, the ones that have cultivated themselves the best will come out the other side, and they will probably meet a woman that has also done that same work. And so I think that that's the way it has to go. I think it's gonna, like I've been saying for a while, there has to be more suffering before people start to like shake out of the, out of this. Like, and a lot of people won't, and that's unfortunate, but it's already happening. We've seen it. People who have fallen for various pitfalls, like they fell into the gender theory stuff, and they started taking hormones, or they mutilated themselves because they want to live as the opposite. Those people, their gene pool's over. Like they're done. And it's sad, but like there's nothing that can be done, right? And I will say this too. I think the people who will be able to endure this storm are going to be the ones that have either never really known this stuff, so they weren't a part of the urban monoculture. They were basically living in rural parts or sort of away from all this madness, or they were the
Exactly.
ones that really made a focus on building community and like operating within that community in a small scale so that they can like build something with someone. Like where I used to live in Chicago, I moved to Virginia in 2020, and I've been here ever since. And I was married before I moved, so but my wife and I live here, and we started going to a church, and everyone there, they're all very young. They're in their 20s. They're all working on multiple children, and I don't think they're ever gonna get divorced. And it's like a different world. It's like a time
Small
machine.
town,
Come
closer to nature, right?
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
high
small town,
electricity.
closer to
Yeah.
nature. I mean, there's some modern influence out here as well, because usually where you get people who have it worked out really well, you get also like a significant amount of resistance to that. So you'll have like, like for example, there's a lot of witches here for some reason. A lot of people that are sort of like very very against this, but that's fine because they're still in the minority. My point is that also these people, they're not just like doing well in terms of like staying married and having kids and building community, but they're also self sufficient enough that if like we lose, some of all of the sort of abundance that we've built, they're going to be able to withstand that. They're not going to worry about like, if the internet goes down, or if they, I don't know, they lose like some let's say access to what we take for granted, all of the sort of comforts of modernity that people in the big cities couldn't handle. If they lost, these people will have it. They grow their own food, they raise their own animals, right? They do everything on their own. So it's like the Amish, like they're going to withstand all of this. They probably don't even know this is going on. you
And
know
that rural or small town self-sufficiency is the antidote to the narratives of grievance. It's
Yeah.
the antidote. Well, because once you're self-sufficient to a degree, your serotonin kicks in. You feel like success. Once you've had that kind of success, you do not want to go back to the narrative of grievance. You
Yeah.
feel ashamed if you do. And so when you're looking at small town agricultural environments or manufacturing environments where people have to work hard, where there are some physical risks in the woods outside town, maybe some coyotes, that the local news carries or something, right? When there's a church, and not just for believers, but there's a utility to religion, which is the strategic pro-social behavior piece. Generally speaking,
Mm-hmm.
in a church, divorce is going to be frowned on and considered failure. Well, if you are a believer, try to, you know, try to pick someone from a church congregation if you are already a believer. I mean, don't lie about it, but if you're already a believer, try to choose someone from a church congregation whose parents are still married and whose friends attend the church. Because the strategic pro-social behavior there, the impetus, the compulsion on her for success, for what success and safety means, is going to be marriage and children, right?
Yeah.
And her friends are her safety zone, not you. Your safety from imminent physical risk. Their safety on a long-term level. So
Mm-hmm.
choose from women who have a friend group, who have parents who stayed together. And that's not to say ignore a woman who's got divorced parents, but you're not going to be as affected by strategic pro-social behavior as she is, right?
Right.
Like it's not the same. Men and women are not different. We don't respond to divorce the same way. We don't respond to the world the same way. Men aren't as influenced by their friends the same way, right?
Yeah.
And so just choose carefully. But understanding the evolved compulsions can help you choose carefully
Mm-hmm.
and can even help in marriage counseling, for heaven's sakes, right? But all of these people come from the humanities. There's not a therapist out there. There might be one in 1,000 who would take a look at it through an evolutionary lens. But
Mm-hmm.
the answer lies in the evolutionary lens.
Yeah. So, Botch TV, I hope that helps. I don't know if
Yeah,
you.
it does.
Yeah,
It
yeah, that's
does.
what I
Yeah.
would say. Like, definitely, look, don't even worry about women right now. Just focus
No.
on like bros and yourself a little bit.
Well, you know what
Um,
they say, bros before hoes, right?
that's right.
But but
uh,
but understand too that you being the best version of yourself is likely going to result eventually in a woman stepping right in front of you in her own subtle way
that's
and
right.
Right.
saying wife me up.
No,
Right.
exactly.
because she's not interested in you if you're not a best version of yourself. And I've
Yeah,
been
you're not
understanding this
the
for a
yeah.
long time, right? And it's a red pill thing where they say ignore women, be the best, and women say, well, that's MGTOW. No, it's not. Being the best version of yourself means that you're going to be quietly admired inside the community, quietly.
Yeah,
And
until
eventually, a
somebody
woman will
approaches you.
step in
Yeah.
front of you, make eye contact, strike up a conversation. And what she's really saying when she does that, be careful about sexual over perception bias. It's not that she wants to
Right.
get laid, but she may very well be saying, I find you quite interesting, and I'm thinking about whether you're family material. And then you're in, but you're
Right.
only in if you've made the best version of yourself by
If you've worked
ignoring
on that.
the
Yeah.
desire for sex, right?
Yeah.
Don't get stuck in relationships so quick. Be your best self, and eventually a woman may very well just walk up to you and say, wife me up.
Yeah. And if
Right.
they don't,
Yeah.
you'll probably be okay with that too by that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's the thing. But look, thank you, Botch. I really got to wrap it up. I think Xavier
Yeah,
has his
for
hand
sure.
up again. No problem. Thank you.
I'll be
Uh,
quick. Just as if I could get through no interruptions, it'll be less than 45 seconds. So
okay.
I put something in Nest in and it's the conversation, right? You can hear advice from everybody, but it's really your choice at the end to work on you and take the best advice you can, because that conversation is happening where the MGTOWers saying don't even bother, the Andrew Tate's aim for superficial Bugattis, and we have the Christ people who have a great morality stance, but at the same time, it is kind of servitude when you have no authority, but you are executing your gender roles. So there's pluses and minuses in every different avenue and people that you talk to. And kudos to you, you're a Zoomer. You guys got it. I mean, everything was set it up for failure, but I don't know if it's the internet that you guys know how to navigate information well and skip through to propaganda. But you guys are really, really based, even though it was set up for you to fail. So even though you guys
Mm-hmm.
have the worst of it, you have the best of it too. So take your advice. The conversations are happening, and the reason I put that the NAS is everybody has their formula, right? And they
Yeah.
say, something's antiquated. You learn history not only to not repeat the mistakes that we don't want to repeat, but you want to keep it worked well too. There were some great things that the church did. There's some good
It's
things that
about,
even Andrew Tate does. So
yeah, for
it's
sure. Yeah. Take everything on its own. Don't worry about where it comes from. Just look at it objectively. The purpose of wisdom is to look back at what worked and then implement that in like a new context, not to just disregard it because it's old. So
Right.
yeah, I agree.
I mean, I got a pretty based grandma, so
Dope. All right, so look, I went way over on time. This has been great, though. I appreciate Mankind versus Modern Feminism for coming on, and thank you, Mr. X and Brian, for saying a few things, and those of you guys who are watching. So, Mankind, real quick, are you just on X? Where can people follow you?
I'm just on X right now. I am developing some material, but I don't want to half-ass it, and I want to be careful, right?
Yeah,
Because really, if we can't reach some women with what we're saying, and the system, the evolved bias is set up in a way to make that very, very difficult. Because challenging them initiates backfire effects. Like challenging modern feminists isn't cool, right? It's not going to help. Even though I do it all the time, it's not helpful. Um, I can't help myself. I do it all the time. So I don't have any socials yet. It's just on X, but I will do some things because I think the education piece here for men, particularly, is absolutely essential, and I'd like to be part of that over time.
yeah. Yeah, man. Well, definitely, we'll have you on sometime again if you like, and
Yeah, you
because this
bet.
is good stuff. And I mean, I'm sure Allison would have some like a good conversation with you about these concepts as well as Karen. She's pretty steeped into the evolutionary stuff. So, all
I've
right,
seen her. Yeah, she is. Yeah. Yep.
yeah. She's very like they're both very knowledgeable on these things, but.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna end the space here. So thank you guys for joining us on the space. Please follow everybody here. If you since you're in the room with them. Christina, I don't know. I guess you didn't want to say anything. That's cool. You're fine just to chill there if you like. And for those of you guys who are watching, please consider liking the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. With the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Happy International Men's Day, Men's Space.
Happy International Men's Day.
Yes. And we'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.